Network security controls. Network-based protection/security is a method of preventing your computer network from unauthorized user access, email spoofing, Trojan horses, denial of service, hacking, viruses, spyware, and intruders. The categories: you may have an active attack, passive attack. Active attack, in which an intruder initiates commands to disrupt the network's normal operation. For example, virus, data modification, or a worm. A passive attack is when a network intruder intercepts data traveling through the network. Example, traffic analysis, scanning, wiretapping. So let's talk about firewalls then. Firewalls, perimeter security for corporate networks connecting to the internet. It looks at and tries to prevent external intruders, untrusted internal users or internal hackers. It applies rules to control network traffic flowing in and out of a network, allowing users to access the internet, stopping hackers or others on the internet from gaining access to the network. General firewall features, combination of hardware and software, should control the most vulnerable point between a corporate network and the internet. Unified threat management refers to a specific kind of IT product that combines several key elements of network security to offer a comprehensive security package to buyers. Unified threat management is a jack of all trades. It provides multiple functionalities in one device: firewall, antivirus, anti-spam, intrusion detection systems, data loss prevention, virtual private network. Goals: simplicity, streamlined installation and maintenance, centralized control. Issues: single point of failure, single point of compromise, and you have performance issues. Web application firewall. A web application firewall filters, monitors, and blocks HTTP traffic to and from a web application. It is differentiated from a regular firewall in that a web application firewall is able to filter the content of specific web applications, while regular firewalls serve as a safety gate between servers. It can prevent attacks stemming from web application security flaws such as SQL injection, cross-site scripting, file inclusion, and security misconfigurations. Intrusion detection systems, otherwise known as IDS. IDSs monitor network usage anomalies. Used together with firewalls and routers, they are continuously operating in the background. Their administrator is alerted when intrusions are detected. They protect against external and internal misuse. The components of an IDS: you have the sensor, which collects data, which can be network packets, log files, and system call traces. You have the analyzer, which receives input from sensors and determines intrusive activity. You have the admin console, and finally the user interface. IDS categories: you can have a network-based IDS, otherwise known as a NIDS, and identify attacks within a network. You can have a host-based IDS, or HIDS, configured for a specific environment and monitor internal resources of systems. Now, an intrusion prevention system is different than an IDS. It is closely related. It's designed to detect and prevent attacks by predicting an attack before it happens, hence limiting the damage or disruption to systems that are attacked. It must be properly configured and tuned to be effective. Network access control. It is the concept of controlling access to an environment through strict adherence to and implementation of security policy. The goals of network access control is to prevent reduced zero-day attacks, enforce security policy throughout the network, and to use identities to perform access control. A honeypot system is a computer that usually sits in the screened subnet or the DMZ or demilitarized zone and attempts to lure attackers to it instead of to the actual production computers. To make a honeypot system lure attackers, administrators may enable services and ports that are popular to exploit. Some honeypot systems have services emulated, meaning that the actual service is not running, but software acts like those services is available. Honeypots can get an attacker's attention by advertising themselves as easy targets for compromise. A honey net is simply a group of honeypots implemented together to create the honey net. Let's talk about cloud virtualization, bring your own device, and Internet of Things security. What is virtualization? We define virtualization as the art and science of making the function of an object or resource simulated or emulated in software identical to that of the corresponding physically realized object. It is a technology that enables running multiple operating systems side by side on the same processing hardware. In other words, we use an abstraction to make software look and behave like hardware with corresponding benefits in flexibility, cost, scalability, reliability, and often overall capability and performance, and in a broad range of applications. It adds a software layer between the operating system and the underlying computer hardware. Benefits: efficiency, higher availability, lower cost. The disadvantages: single point of failure, weaker from security and privacy perspective. A hypervisor is a process that separates a computer's operating system and applications from the underlying physical hardware. The hypervisor drives the concept of virtualization by allowing the physical host machine to operate multiple virtual machines as guests to help maximize the effective use of computing resources such as memory, network bandwidth, and CPU cycles. A host-based virtual machine is an instance of a desktop operating system that runs on a centralized server. A guest virtual machine, or guest VM, refers to a virtual machine that is installed, executed, and hosted on the local physical machine. Here's a case study, was called Blue Pill. This is the software code which can be installed as a thin hypervisor and control the machine under it and intercept the communication between the guest machine and the host machine. It was originally found in 2006, and now you need a permission to download this code. So in other words, you could go from the guest machine through the hypervisor into the actual physical machine. Cloud computing. It is the use of remote servers on the internet to store, manage, and process your data rather than a local server or local computer. 5 essential cloud computing features. Resource pooling. The provider's computing resources are pooled to serve multiple consumers using a multi-tenant model with different physical and virtual resources dynamically assigned and reassigned according to consumer demand. Examples of resources include storage, processing, memory, and network bandwidth. Rapid elasticity. Capabilities can be elastically provisioned and released, in some cases automatically, to scale rapidly outward and inward commensurate with demand. Broad network access. Capabilities are available over the network and accessed through standard mechanisms that promote use by heterogeneous thin or thick client platforms, i.e. mobile phones, tablets, laptops, and workstations. Measured service. Cloud systems automatically control and optimize resource use by leveraging a metering capability at some level of abstraction appropriate to the type of service, storage, processing, bandwidth, and active user accounts. Finally, on-demand self-service. A consumer can unilaterally provision computing capabilities, such as a server time and network storage, as needed automatically without requiring human interaction with each service provider. Cloud computing can be broken up into 3 main services: software as a service, or SaaS, infrastructure as a service, or IaaS, and platform as a service, or PaaS. Public cloud, we mean that the whole computing infrastructure is located on the premises of a cloud computing company that offers the cloud service. A private cloud means using a cloud infrastructure or network solely by one customer or organization. A hybrid cloud means using both a private and public clouds depending on their purpose. A community cloud implies an between organizations, usually with the shared data and data management concerns. A community cloud can belong to a government or of a single country. Community clouds can be located both on and off premises. Some cloud security challenges: multi-tenancy, privacy, multi-jurisdiction, and virtualization complexity. Multi-tenancy is an architecture in which a single instance of a software application serves multiple customers. Each customer is called a tenant. Privacy: the foremost issues in cloud data security include data privacy, data protection, data availability, data location, and secure transmission. Multiple jurisdiction: jurisdiction over another country or territory. Depending on where that data goes and resides, it may have a jurisdiction issue. Virtualization has its own fair share of problems, such as the complexity of troubleshooting applications and system performance, and also provides low visibility into business transaction flow, which could lead to disruption of key business processes. Bring your own device, also called bring your own technology, bring your own phone, and bring your own personal computer, refers to the policy of permitting employees to bring personally owned devices, laptop, tablets, smartphones, etc., to their workplace and to use those devices to access. With mobile device management, it is a type of security software used by an IT department to monitor, manage, and secure employees' mobile devices that are deployed across multiple mobile service providers and across multiple mobile operating systems being used in the organization. Enterprise Mobility Management, or EMM, is similar to mobile device management. The main difference is that mobile device management manages all the features of the device, while Enterprise Mobility Management manages the entire device. Internet of Things. The Internet of Things is the network of devices such as vehicles and home appliances that contain electronics, software, actuators, and connectivity, which allows these things to connect, interact, and exchange data. Internet of Things security challenges: insufficient testing and updating, brute forcing, and the issue of default passwords. Internet of Things malware and ransomware, and data security and privacy concerns, mobile, web, and cloud. Security testing. So a vulnerability scan. It is the process of examining your systems and network devices for holes, for weaknesses, issues, and finding them before a potential attacker does. Specialized tools called vulnerability scanners are designed to help administrators discover and address these vulnerabilities. Vulnerability scanning is an ongoing process, and it is not enough to scan systems once and assume they will be secure from that point on. Vulnerability scan goals: identify vulnerabilities. This includes outdated software versions that contain flaws or even missing patches. Identify lack of security controls. Vulnerability scanners can identify many common misconfigurations. Some scanners are even capable of checking for misconfigurations. Penetration testing, or pen testing, simulates an attack from a malicious outsider probing your network and systems for a way in. Pen tests are often the most aggressive form of security testing and can take on many forms depending on what is considered in or out of scope. Goes beyond vulnerability testing and actually tries to exploit the system. Its goal is to measure an organization's level of resistance to an attack and to uncover any weaknesses within the environment. It emulates the same methods attackers would use. Types of penetration testing. The type of pen testing should depend upon the organization, its security objectives, and the management's goals. Black box testing. The tester has no knowledge of the internal design or features of the system. It actually simulates the external attacker the best. White box testing. The tester has complete knowledge of the internal system. It may yield a more complete result, but it may not be representative of an external hacker. It may be a good indicator of an internal type threat. A gray box testing. Some information about internal working is given to the tester. It helps guide their tactics toward areas we want to have thoroughly tested, but this approach mitigates the risks of the other two models. Security audits. These are systematic evaluations performed with the purpose of demonstrating the effectiveness of controls to a third party. It is performed by independent auditors. Auditors provide an impartial, unbiased view of the state of the security controls. Types of audits. Internal audits are performed by an organization's internal staff. The reports are typically intended for an internal audience. The disadvantage is conflict of interest and hidden agendas. External audits are performed by third-party auditors. Reports are intended for third-party stakeholders. Non-disclosure agreements are a prerequisite. Major disadvantage is the cost. Let us review some key points covered in this lesson. Networks are part of a large, centrally managed, inter-networked architecture solution of high-speed local and wide area networks. Wireless networks is an interconnection of many systems to mobile users without the use of physical cabling. The data is carried by electrical wave from one node to another. Network-based protection consists of policies and practices adopted to prevent and monitor unauthorized access, misuse, modification, or denial of a computer network and network accessible resources. Some of the emerging technologies include cloud, virtualization, BYOD or bring your own device, and IoT or Internet of Things security. And vulnerability scanning is a process of examining your systems and network devices for gaps, weaknesses, and issues and finding them before a potential attacker does. Information system governance and risk assessment. By the end of this lesson, you will be able to explain information security governance, describe risk management, and summarize effective information security program. Information security governance. Information security governance is a set of responsibilities and practices exercised by the board and the executive management. It's there to achieve the goal of providing strategic direction, ensuring that objectives are achieved, ascertaining that risks are managed appropriately, and verifying that the enterprise's resources are used responsibly. Major focus of governance: risk management, resource management, performance measures, strategic alignment, value delivery. Business goals and objectives: strategic, long-term; tactical, remember, medium-term; and operational, day-to-day. Business process and operations in place to meet customers' needs along with product and service development. Business drivers are the key inputs and activities that drive the operational and financial results of a business. Market demands, organizational needs and brand image, customer requests, legal requirements, social needs, technological advancements. An enabling technology is an invention or innovation that can be applied to drive radical change in the capabilities of a user or culture. Enabling technologies are characterized by rapid development of subsequent derivative technologies, often in diverse fields. Enablers for governance. Enablers are factors that individually and collectively influence whether something will work. Enablers are driven by goals. So enabler categories. What kind of people do we have? What kind of skills do they have? Competencies. We may have principles, policies, or frameworks, processes, services, infrastructure, applications, and then finally, culture, ethics, and behavior. Effective information security governance Information security governance is the responsibility of the board of directors and executive management. A clear organizational strategy for preservation is equally important and must accompany a strategy for progress. Outcomes of information security governance: clear approval and support for formal security strategies and policies, monitoring and measuring organizational performance in implementing security policies, supporting security awareness and training for all staff throughout the organization, adequate resources and sufficient authority to implement and maintain information security activities, treating information security as a critical business issue and creating a security-positive environment, demonstrating to third parties that the organization deals with information security in a professional manner, providing high level of oversight and control while periodically reviewing information security effectiveness. Management refers to the degree that senior management understands the importance of the security function, the extent that management is perceived to support security goals and priorities, participating in strategic information security plans and policies, and review of alignment of information security objectives with business objectives, providing overall guidance, committing funding and resources, and identifying key performance metrics and review performance. Establishing and reporting communication channels. Periodic formal reporting to the board of directors and executive management is going to happen. You need to have routine communication channels to senior management, business process owners, other management, and to employees. Sometimes for performance management, we can do that through an IT balanced scorecard and the Capability Maturity Model, or CMM. Performance management is the systematic process by which the Department of Commerce involves its employees as individuals and members of a group. A balanced scorecard is a performance metric used in strategic management to identify and improve various internal functions of a business and the resulting external outcomes. It is used to measure and provide feedback to organizations. The Capability Maturity Model is a methodology used to develop and refine an organization's software development process. The model describes a 5-level evolutionary path of increasingly organized and systematically more mature processes. SMART is an acronym, S-M-A-R-T, giving criteria to guide in the setting of objectives. A SMART metric: specific, measurable, achievable or acceptable, realistic, and time-specific or trackable. Specific: target a specific area for improvement. Measurable: quantify or at least suggest an indicator of progress. Achievable or acceptable: goals should be attainable. Realistic: state what results can realistically be achieved given available resources. And finally, time-specific, trackable: specify when the results can be achieved. Risk management. So let's talk about risk management. Risk management is the process of identifying, assessing, monitoring, and controlling events arising from risk or threats and decrease the probability and impact of such events. Risks are inherent in any business and cannot be avoided. Information security risks are increasing day by day with advent of new technological pastures. Risks cannot be removed. They can be minimized to an acceptable level. Why risk management? What are some of the questions that generally come up? What are the organization's critical resources? What are the values of those resources? What are the legal, regulatory, or other compliance requirements? What are the weaknesses and or threats to these critical resources? What's the impact to the business if these weaknesses or threats are exploited? What are the countermeasures and controls to mitigate the risk? What's the cost to implement the countermeasures and controls? What are the risk monitoring techniques? How do you report risk posture for senior management as well as compliance requirements? Risk management is an iterative process. Risk management is the cornerstone of any information security program. Risk management represents time-proven methods and techniques used to identify risks, assess the risk, develop a risk management plan, implementing actions, reevaluate the risks. Quantitative risk analysis is a technique used to assess the risk exposure events to overall organizational objectives and determine with the confidence levels of achieving the organizational objectives. It assists by quantifying the measure of the magnitude of impact in financial terms. It enables business management to prioritize or rank the risks. The value or numbers arrived at may be subject to variations or margins, as well as errors. Quantitative risk assessments calculate absolute financial values. Qualitative risk analysis, a subjective analysis on an educated guess. It uses different risk scenarios and ranks threats based on the probability of the threat occurring and, if it occurs, the impact it has on the organization's business objective. It's based on expert judgment, intuition, and experience rather than on numbers and financial values. The initial assessment to identify risk will be the subject of further detailed quantitative analysis if so required by the organization. It considers the organizational culture, the reputation, the brand image, etc. Ranks risk on a basis reflecting low risk to high risk. Risk management can be thought of as handling risk. It's important to realize that risk management is not risk elimination. A business that doesn't take any risks doesn't stay in business for long. The cost to eliminate all risks will consume all profits. Risk mitigation. Measures to eliminate or reduce the vulnerability. Example, prioritizing, evaluating, and implementing the appropriate risk-reducing controls. Risk transfer is to move the risk impact from an organization to another entity. An example, transfer the risk by using other options such as purchasing insurance to compensate for the loss. Risk avoidance, to avoid the risk by eliminating the risk, cause, and or consequence. Example, moving the organization out of a flood zone. Finally, risk acceptance, to recognize that the risk cannot be economically mitigated and accept as a cost of doing business. Example, to accept that you cannot control the weather causing a power outage and your organization is temporarily disabled. Key risk indicators and key performance indicators. A key risk indicator is a metric for measuring the likelihood that the combined probability of an event and its consequences will exceed the organization's risk appetite and have a profoundly negative impact on an organization's ability to be successful. Key performance indicator is a quantifiable metric that reflects how well an organization is achieving its stated goals and objectives. A key risk indicator are pieces of data serving as early warning indicators of increased risk exposure in various areas of the enterprise. KRIs are selected for their impact on the decisions of the senior leaders in the organization. KPIs, or key performance indicators, are designed to provide a high-level overview of the past performance of the organization, and its major operating units often focus almost exclusively on historical data. Process by which to measure the performance of security controls and processes. KPIs are driven by organizational goals. Risk IT framework. A risk IT framework based on guiding principles and featuring business processes and management guidelines that conform to these principles. A risk management framework is the structured process used to identify potential threats to an organization and to define the strategy for eliminating or minimizing the impact of these risks, as well as the mechanisms to effectively monitor and evaluate this strategy. Risk IT framework complements COBIT, which provides framework for control and governance of business-driven IT-based solutions. Risk IT framework is to be used to help implement IT governance in enterprises that have adopted COBIT as IT governance framework. Risk IT framework go from risk governance to risk evaluation to risk response. Information Security Program. Information System Programs. Information security initiatives of the organization. To ensure that its information assets are protected, it describes the complete organizational structure that will manage information risks of the organization assets. The security program consists of controls, processes, and practices to increase the resilience of the computing environment and ensure that risks are known and handled in an effective manner. The information security program components are the people, stakeholders who participate in the security activities of the organization and whose actions can impact the achievement of security goals. The process, a set of coordinated activities that results in an outcome of the information security program. And the policy, course of action to guide or influence information security. Information security objectives. Implement information security strategy in the most cost-effective manner. It's there to tackle issues during the execution of the information security program. The objectives are to analyze the current state of security against the desired state of security. Develop key goal indicators, KGIs, to reflect objectives. And finally, to develop methods to measure the information security program progress toward meeting the information security objectives. The Information Security Program Charter, it's a formal written definition of the objectives of a program, its main timelines, the sources of funding, the names of its principal leaders and managers, and the business executives who are sponsoring the program. Information Security Management Framework, Control Objectives for Information and Related Technologies, is a good practice framework for information technology management and IT governance. COBIT, issued by ISACA, is a nonprofit organization for IT governance. Its main function of COBIT is to help the company map their IT processes to ISACA's best practices standard. COBIT 5 principles, meeting stakeholder needs, covering the enterprise end-to-end, applying a single integrated framework, enabling a holistic approach, and separating governance from management. ISO or IEC 27001 is the internationally recognized structure methodology dedicated to information security, a management process to evaluate, implement, and maintain an information security management system, a comprehensive set of controls comprised of best practices in information security. It's applicable to all industry sectors. Its emphasis is on prevention, and it has 114 controls mapped to 14 different security domains. It is a framework of policies and procedures that includes all legal, physical, and technical controls involved in an organization's information risk management process. ISO 27001 domains are listed: security policies, organization of information security, human resources security, asset management, access control, cryptography, physical and environmental security, operations security, communication security, system acquisition, development, and maintenance, supplier relationships, information security incident management, information security aspects of business continuity management, and compliance. The Information Security Program Roadmap review your current security levels, and otherwise known as your current state. This right here is with the security level of data, applications, systems, facilities, and processes. From there, we develop an information security program roadmap from the current state to achieve where you want to go as the desired state. It's a high-level plan for projects and initiatives, architectural design where it is required, identify milestones to achieve key goal indicators, critical success factors, and key performance indicators. Gap analysis for action plan. Look at analysis of gaps between the current state and the desired state. Identify areas where control objectives are inadequate or just are flat not there, they're absent. Establish control and control points. Monitor controls to ensure control objectives are met and achievement of security objectives are supported. Outcomes of an information security program: strategic alignment, risk management, value delivery, resource management, performance management, business process assurance. Strategic alignment is a fundamental business concept that determines the competitiveness of an organization. The concept explains how organizations can better achieve strategic alignment to increase growth and profitability, even in the toughest markets and economic climates. Risk management for information assets is a primary responsibility of the Information Security Manager and an ongoing activity as reviewed. The Information Security Manager must develop an understanding of the threats the organization faces, its vulnerabilities, and its risk profile. Value delivery is an objective that requires the information security program to deliver the required level of security effectively and efficiently. Execution of the information security program can have considerable effect in achieving this goal. Resource management. The Information Security Manager must use human, technical, knowledge, and financial resources effectively. Security practices and processes must be documented and must be consistent with standards and policies. Security architecture should be developed to define and utilize infrastructures to achieve security objectives efficiently. Performance management must develop monitoring process and metrics to provide reporting on effectiveness of information security processes and controls. The Information Security Manager should also seek independent assurance from external assessments as well as internal and external audit activities. Business process assurance. It is critical that an Information Security Manager understands that effective security goes far beyond the scope of information security activities. Activities, disciplines, and functions of other departments have implications on information security. Now let's look at supply chain. A supply chain is a system of organizations, people, activities, information, and resources involved in moving a product or services from supplier to customer. Supply chain management is an expansive, complex undertaking that relies on each partner from suppliers to manufacturers and beyond to run well. Supply chain risk management. It is the implementation of strategies to manage both everyday and exceptional risks along the supply chain based on continuous risk assessment with the objective of reducing vulnerability and ensuring continuity. Supply chain risks. Key supply chain risk is comprised of software or hardware purchased from suppliers, includes vulnerabilities in supply chain management or supplier systems, sometimes as a result of poor information security practices by lower-tier suppliers, can deal with counterfeit hardware or hardware with embedded malware, at times deals with third-party data storage or data aggregators, also can deal with third-party service providers or vendors. Let's talk about supply chain countermeasures. Compliance and governance of suppliers, vendors, third-party actors, partners, traders, manufacturers, and contractors. Presence of robust IT security solutions internally is a method of establishing clear and limited access guidelines for supply chain vendors are a company's greatest defense against cyber attack. Certification of international standards is probably one of the often overlooked elements of ensuring cybersecurity in business operations. Supplier management controls. Supplier management is the process whereby companies monitor and manage interactions with all external parties with which it has a relationship. This may include both contractual and non-contractual parties. Personnel management. Personnel management is the planning, organizing, compensation, integration, and maintenance of people for the purpose of contributing to organizational, individual, and societal goals. Roles, a set of connected behaviors or actions that are performed by a person, team, or group in a specific context. Responsibility, a responsibility or responsibilities are work, activity, procedures, or functions that individuals assigned to roles are required to perform and are accountable. Skills, training, expertise, and experience held by the personnel in the given job function. Organizational culture is the collective behavior of stakeholders that form part of an organization. Let's look at a case study or an insider error. This happened on Amazon Web Service outage. In May 2017, Amazon faced the big AWS outage that took down a bunch of large internet sites for several hours on Tuesday afternoon. This outage was due to human error. The company said that one of its employees was debugging an issue with the billing system and accidentally took more servers offline than intended. That error started a domino effect that took down 2 other server subsystems. This case illustrates the importance of change management and internal governance in organizations. Common information security program challenges: inadequate management support, inadequate funding, inadequate staffing. Let us review some key points covered in this lesson. Information security governance is the set of responsibilities and practices exercised by the board and executive management to achieve goals and objectives and manage risks and resources. Risk management is the process of identifying, assessing, monitoring, and controlling events arising from risks or threats and decreasing the probability and impact of such events. And finally, the information security program consists of controls, processes, and practices to increase the resilience of the computing environment and ensure that risks are known and handled in an effective manner. Incident management. By the end of this lesson, you'll be able to develop an incident management and response system, explain the process of digital forensics, describe business continuity and disaster recovery, developing an incident management and response system. Basic definitions. What is an incident? It's an adverse event that has caused or has the potential to cause damage to an organization's assets, reputation, or personnel. Incident management. It is a process of developing and maintaining the capability to manage incidents within an organization so that impacts can be mitigated and recovery. It is a process of developing and maintaining the capability to manage incidents within an organization so that impacts can be mitigated and recovery is achieved within the specified time objective. Incident response. It is the capability to effectively prepare for and respond to unanticipated events to control and limit damage and maintain or restore normal operation. Information Technology Infrastructure Library, or ITIL, 2011 defines an incident as an unplanned interruption to an IT service or reduction in the quality of an IT service. The ITIL incident management process ensures that normal service operation is restored as quickly as possible and the business impact is minimized. An incident response plan is a set of instructions to help IT staff detect, respond to, and recover from network security incidents. These types of plans address issues like cybercrime, data loss, and service outages that threaten daily work. The Incident Response Plan is a document that defines policies, roles, responsibilities, and actions to be taken in the event of a security incident. Incident Response Plan is the operational component of incident management process. Plan details actions, personnel, and activities that take place in the case of diverse events resulting in the loss of information systems or processes. Senior management support is required for success of incident response plans. Incident management stages. Detect. Most important step in responding to an incident. Properly timed detection mechanisms will help in identification of incidents. Respond. Early stage of response is to figure out what information is needed to restore security. The goals are to figure out who did it, how they did it, when they did it, and why. Mitigate. Goal is to prevent or reduce any further damage from the incident. Proper mitigation strategy helps buy time in investigation and determination of the root cause. Report. Reporting occurs during the life cycle of the incident at various stages and various levels. Recover. Returning all systems and information to known good state. It is very important to gather all evidences before recovering the system and information. Remediate. Based on the investigation, decide the permanent solutions to prevent occurrence of similar incidents. Learn. Review the incident, how it was handled, carry post-mortem analysis. This phase can help make adjustments to response strategies. Incident response metrics are factors used in incident response metrics, and these are number of incidents of each incident severity and type, the dwell time, the time from start of an incident to the time the organization became aware of the incident, time required to contain the incident, time required to resolve and close incidents, number of times incident response service level agreements were not met, number of external people affected and notified, and the total cost required to resolve each incident. Did you know that incident response metrics help leadership understand the real story, drive process improvement, and assist in directing spending by providing insight into what your future defense, detection, and response capabilities should look like? Team training prepares a group of individuals to function together as an incident management team, or IMT. Every incident management team member should undergo the following training program. Induction to an incident management team. Basic information about the team and its operations. Mentoring, team's roles, responsibilities, and procedures. On-the-job training. Formal training. A gap analysis is a method of assessing the differences in performance between a business information systems or software applications to determine whether business requirements are being met, and if not, what steps should be taken to ensure they are met successfully. Gap refers to the space between where we are, present state, and where we want to be, the target state. Gap analysis provides information on the gap between current incident response capabilities compared with the desired level. By comparing the two levels, the following may be identified: processes that need to be improved more or made more efficient and effective, resources needed to achieve the objectives for incident response capabilities. Digital forensics. Digital forensics, sometimes known as digital forensic science, is a branch of forensic science encompassing the recovery and investigation of material found in digital devices, often in relation to computer crime. The goal of digital forensics is to examine digital media in a forensically sound manner with the aim of identifying, preserving, recovering, analyzing, and presenting facts and opinions about the digital information. The process: identification, preservation, collection, examination, analysis, presentation, decision. The digital forensic process is a recognized scientific and forensics process used in digital forensics investigations. The goal of the process is to preserve any evidence in its most original form while performing a structured investigation by collecting, identifying, and validating the digital information for the purpose of reconstructing past events. The process best practices: the original image must be a bit-level copy, sector by sector, to capture deleted files, slack spaces, and unallocated clusters. The original image is called the primary image, which must be stored in a library. Investigators should only work from a copy of the primary image called the secondary image. These should be time-stamped to show when the evidence is collected. Before collecting the images to a new media, it is important to ensure the destination is sanitized. Forensics investigative assessment types: network analysis. We're looking at traffic analysis, log analysis, path tracing through the network. Media analysis: we're looking at disk imaging, timeline analysis, registry analysis, and shadow volume analysis. If we're looking at software analysis, we're looking at reverse engineering, malicious code review, and exploit review. Finally, if we're looking at hardware and embedded device review, we're looking at dedicated appliance attack points, firmware and dedicated inspections, and embedded operating systems, virtualized software, and hypervisor analysis. Digital evidence is defined as information and data of value to an investigation that is stored on, received, or transmitted by an electronic device. This evidence can be acquired when electronic devices are seized and secured for examination. Digital evidence is information stored or transmitted in binary form that may be relied on in court. It can be found on a computer hard drive, a mobile phone, a personal digital assistant or PDA, a CD, a flash card, and a digital camera, among other places. Digital evidence is commonly associated with electronic crime or e-crime, such as child pornography or credit card fraud. Digital evidence is now used to prosecute all types of crimes, not just e-crime. The evidence should be relevant, complete, sufficient, and reliable to the case at hand. Relevant, it must have reasonable and sensible relationship to the findings. It must be complete. It must present the whole truth of the issue. It must be sufficient. It must be persuasive enough to convince a reasonable party or a reasonable person of the validity of the evidence. Finally, reliable. It must be consistent with the facts, must be factual and not circumstantial. Chain of digital evidence are very important parts of digital investigation process. We're looking at collection and identification. From there, we go to storage, preservation, and transportation. All of these are critically monitored. From there, it goes to the presentation in court. And finally, the return of evidence to its owner. A chain of custody is when information is gathered from the crime scene and is used to create a chain of custody to show what was at the scene, its location, and its condition. It is important because it can be used during a criminal court trial. A history that shows how evidence was collected, analyzed, transported, and preserved are in order to be presented in court. Chain of custody should follow evidence through its entire life cycle. When copies of data need to be made, the copies must be able to be independently verified and must be tamper-proof. Chain of custody evidence dictates that all evidence be labeled with information indicating who secured and validated it. Business continuity and disaster recovery, or BCDR. Business continuity planning. Business continuity is having a plan to deal with major disruption like cyber attacks, floods, and supply failures. A disaster recovery refers to an organization's ability to recover from a disaster and or an unexpected event and resume normal operations. While disaster recovery and business continuity are closely related, they are not actually the same thing. The key difference between the two is in their scope. The 7 phases of a business continuity plan phase is a complex arrangement of the critical processes that allow for continuation of business activities after an emergency. Develop a business continuity plan policy. Should be a part of the overall integrated control framework. Conduct business impact analysis. Inventory all key business processes. Statement of impact. Threat analysis. Establish recovery targets. Define recovery time objectives and recovery point objectives. Develop recovery and continuity strategies and plans. Choose proper recovery sites. Choose backup solutions. Test the recovery and continuity plans and procedures. Choose appropriate test plans and test regularly. Train personnel. Regularly train individuals. And finally, periodically update and maintain the plan. Maintain strategies, plans, and procedures through periodic reviews and updates. Basic terms of business continuity planning and disaster recovery. Recovery time objective is the maximum desired length of time allowed between an unexpected failure or disaster and the resumption of normal operations and service levels. Recovery point objective, this refers to the maximum data loss from the onset of a disaster. RPO, or recovery point objective, is focused solely on the issue of backup frequency. Maximum tolerable downtime is the time after which the process being unavailable creates irreversible consequences. A business impact analysis. It is a systematic process to determine and evaluate the potential effects of an interruption to critical business operations as a result of a disaster, accident, or emergency. The impact may be in the form of qualitative or a quantitative. To perform this business impact analysis, it is essential to understand structure and culture of the organization, key business processes, acceptable risk, risk tolerance, and critical IT and physical resources. A business impact analysis predicts the consequences of disruption of a business function and process and gathers information needed to develop recovery strategies. Potential loss scenarios should be identified during a risk assessment. Disaster recovery sites is a facility an organization can use to recover and restore its technology infrastructure and operations when its primary data center becomes unavailable. It should be chosen on the basis of recovery strategies, your recovery point objective, and your recovery time objective. Cold sites. A cold disaster recovery site is the most simplistic type of disaster recovery site. It consists of elements to provide power and networking capability as well as cooling. A warm site. A warm site contains all the elements of a cold site, adding to them additional elements including storage hardware such as tape or disk drives, along with both servers and switches. Warm sites are ready to go. Hot sites. A hot site is a fully functional backup site that already has important data mirrored to it. Disaster recovery testing. It is the examination of each step in a disaster recovery plan as outlined in an organization's business continuity, disaster recovery, or BCDR planning process. It should be done periodically. Here are the 5 types of recovery tests. A document or paper test. Individuals read and annotate recovery plans. Sometimes a document paper test is called a tabletop. A walkthrough test. Groups walk through plans to identify issues and changes. A simulation goes through a simulated disaster to identify whether emergency response plans are adequate. Think of a fire drill. Parallel test. Recovery systems are built, set up, and tested to see if they can perform actual business transactions to support key processes. Primary systems still carry the full production workload. Finally, a full cutover test. Recovery systems are built, set up to assume the full production workload. You disconnect primary systems. Let us review some key points covered in this lesson. Incident management is a process of developing and maintaining the capability to manage incidents within an organization. Digital forensics examines digital media with the aim of identifying, preserving, recovering, analyzing, and presenting facts and opinions about digital information. Business continuity deals with major disruptions, whereas disaster recovery is an organization's ability to recover from a disaster and/or unexpected event and resume operations.